Hello, everybody. This is Secular Sekai. Oh, there we go. Hello, everybody. This is Secular Sekai with Tridents Against Tyrants, and we are here today with Canti Ludan, who is here to give, talk a little bit about a few of the most recent happenings in Ukraine. Uh, and I know many of you are already going to know Canti because he's been here for a long while supporting many pro-Ukraine communities. Also, before we continue, please give us a plus plus in chat if everyone can hear us, and that seems to be working correctly.
I hope so.
I'll
I'm
wait
not a
until.
great tech person, so if anything's wrong, it's going to take me a while to figure it out.
All right. Let's see. Up, we got a plus plus. Oh, also, many of you may have noticed that we are on the usual background for solo streams, and that's because we've got OBS this week for this update. Also, I've got the extra owl up. Let me remove that real fast. There we go. Not really needed at the moment. But we've got the fundraiser bar. We've got the little ticker at the bottom explaining donations for Buy Me a Coffee. Uh, so, yeah, kind of nice. So going back to the original topic, welcome everybody. I see Ronnie Vrankin, Canty is in chat and here with us, Lynn S, Anna, LJ Boone, UTV Ham, uh, and Bell Cowart, and a few others. If I missed anyone, my apologies. Welcome everybody. All right. So, first order of business. Canty, for anyone who doesn't know you or maybe hasn't seen you on a stream before, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself and why you support Ukraine?
Well, it actually is quite a lot longer story than most people will realize. I started studying Ukrainian history back in 95, 96 when I started going to college. Was always interested in the Middle Ages and was reading about the Golden Horde and the invasion across Europe and um, just started reading about what happened in Ukraine and in the Carpathians, and just got interested. And I think there was one story that really solidified that for me. Um, you know, the ruler of the Kievan Rus sent an emissary down to Constantinople, and they asked if they were Vikings. And of course, the royalty back then was brought over from like Sweden and Norway area to rule and uh, help organize the Ukrainian area, the Kievan Rus, basically. Uh, so they were Vikings, but Constantinople asked if there were Vikings, and their reply was, "I don't think so." And it just struck me as funny, and I just wanted to learn more and read more and read more, and
So you
that's
got really, so
that's how it all started for me. So
okay, so you've had a strong interest for many years, going back to like academia.
yeah, well, I have to admit, I knew more about like the medieval Kievan Rus than I did about like Ukraine in the last 50 years. So I learned a lot about recent history since the war started. I should say since the invasion started,
Right. Yeah.
because the war started in 2014. You ask any Ukrainian that, and they'll tell you the war started in 2014. They just did the full scale invasion in 2022.
Right. But some might even say earlier than that, depending on if we're counting the first hot war, meaning the invasion of 2014, annexation of Crimea, or if we count all of the hybrid war tactics, immediately before that.
Well,
But yeah, yeah,
Russia installed the presidents and
yeah,
stuff like that, just like they're doing with Belarus. So,
yeah, exactly. With a lot of countries in the periphery of the former Soviet Union, honestly, uh, I talk with people in a couple countries, Republic of Georgia and Armenia, and the comparisons of what's happening with certain things in their political systems with Ukraine back in 2013, 2014, it's pretty it's pretty fascinating. It's definitely deja vu. But in any case, so that's a little bit about yourself as and why you've you know been supporting Ukraine and how you first were familiar with Ukraine. Um, I guess what are a few things and it could be anything from an individual level, like just donations or general support, or like a formal project that you've helped out with. What's a few ways that you've contributed to you know humanitarian support or assisting the armed forces of Ukraine in the war effort, things of that nature.
well, when the invasion first started, I really wasn't looking at streams. Um, I was just talking to people and um, ran across the guy from the 56th Mechanized Rifle Battalion. I think that's the right way to say that. Um, and they were trying to get a truck. And oh, I have to back up a little bit because I had thyroid cancer and I've been basically unable to work for several years. Um, got into a car accident, had depression, stuff like this, and just it was bad. So about 2019, 2020 maybe, I decided that, you know, instead of just reading about, the Kievan Rus and looking at pictures of the castle, I'm going to go to Ukraine. I'm going to go to Belarus and Russia and uh, over to Estonia and that and see all the castles in the old territory of the Kievan Rus. So I started saving in 2019 to go on that trip to see the old castles and stuff, and it was kind of funny because well, not funny haha, but funny is strange because it was like the the night before the invasion started. I was sitting there planning out my trip, what hotels I'm going to go to, what flights I was going to book, and I was getting ready to do all that. The next day, went to bed and woke up and oh, there's an invasion. Uh, I can't book my flight. Okay, what the heck's going on? And went from there. Um, but anyways, that reading about that, getting on Telegram, and you know, talking to people here or there, I got connected with the guy from the 56th Brigade, and they were trying to get money for a truck to do evacuations.
Hmm.
And I was like, well, I can't use my money to go to the trip, but I can use it to help them get a truck.
Yeah, flexibility. Found a new use for it.
So yeah, my original vacation money went to get a truck for the 56th Brigade, and the truck didn't last long, and they didn't do very well in the beginning. But it evacuated 17 people before it got blown up.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it got blown up with the guy I met in it, but
Oh man, I'm sorry to hear that. No, especially, I mean, all throughout this war, but in the last few weeks, I'd say month and a half, especially, definitely, I've definitely heard of a lot of people uh, personally known, both, of course, both in Ukraine and outside of Ukraine, being lost. It's it's been pretty bad.
Well, you can't talk to anybody in Ukraine without meeting someone that knows somebody that's passed or still serving or in hospital recovering from injuries. Um, it affects everybody in Ukraine. Um, Nobody's been able to escape it. So,
Yeah, precisely. And that. Oh, thank you very much. Oh, I just realized it's covered. But thank you very much, Bell Cowart. Bought a trident. Oh, hold on. Let me let me fix that so that it's visible next time it comes up if anyone else donates. But thank you very much for the donation. It's very appreciated. And as a reminder, as always, the yellow notification donations there go toward soldiers of the 110th Mechanized Brigade or any of their uh, comrades, any of their friends in other units who are in need of equipment. Um, and the blue ones are for the channel. So I encourage people to donate to the yellow before the blue. All right. Oh, and also, okay, good. I don't have any tickers that'll get in the way. All right. So again, apologies for the loss of your friend. And yeah, as far as the trucks go, yeah, no, from the very beginning of this war, that's exactly what I've heard. You know, they're incredibly important. They're crucial. All of the trucks that have been sent at this point, the hundreds of trucks and other vehicles that have been, purchased, a lot of them through grassroots efforts for soldiers. They're a lot of the time civilian vehicles. They don't last very long, but yeah,
they get the job done.
exactly,
They're filling a gap that needs to be filled. And
absolutely.
I always wondered what it was about the Nissan Navaras, because those are not available in the U.S. And like the first 5 vehicles I helped, I was a majority donator on the one for 56th. Um, something like I bought the truck and everybody else paid for like the trip to Poland to pick it up for the unit. So, but even that one was a Nissan Navara, and then like the next 4 vehicle rate fundraisers I helped out, they were all Nissan Navaras, and I'm sitting here going, okay, why is everybody after this truck? I got to try and drive one of these trucks.
Yep, yep. Man. And well, and so that actually follows into my next question. Your trip to Ukraine, which I saw a bit of it through different streams and videos across more than one channel, actually. Um, yeah, tell us a little bit about it. And I actually don't remember. Did you get a chance to drive a truck?
Yes, I did. Not a Nissan Navara, but um, I did drive one of the NAFO trucks. Um, you know, Nothing big about it. It's just what it is.
Yeah, yeah.
They needed a driver, and I had time on my hands.
Right.
uh,
And oh, go ahead.
yeah, it's just being disabled. That's the hardest thing is figuring out what to do with your time, because you can't really. Well, I could not really do anything physical. I could maybe stand for 5-10 minutes before I have to sit down and rest. So finding something I was able to do gets pretty hard.
Right. Yeah. Well, and your support and the fact that you were willing and able and you followed through with traveling to Ukraine, meeting everyone you did, driving a truck. Um, oh, also, I just received a reminder. I'm putting the QA box up because I forgot to do that last time, everyone. But going back to Yeah, your trip to Ukraine. Thank you very much for making that trip because it really does. It goes to show, and everyone's circumstance is different. Sometimes someone does or doesn't have the money, or isn't in a situation to be able to travel out there. But we all have ways that we can help out, and you going there, visibly meeting everyone that you did, driving a truck, just being who you are and being
Well,
visibly a face supporting Ukraine. Yeah, it means a lot. It does.
well, to be honest, it really was more. Ukraine's done more for me than I've done for it. It's kind of weird to say that. Um, like I said, I was in a bad space mentally. If it wasn't for deciding to do the trip before the invasion happened, I don't know where I'd be. Um, there's probably a good chance that I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for having that goal.
Mm.
And um, one of the other things I got into, because fixed income, not I'm not really able to do much donating. I saved for years to be able to do what I have done. And if I wasn't saving before the invasion to make a trip there, I wouldn't have been able to do a lot of the stuff I've done.
Yeah. No,
So
mhm.
one of the things I got into was uh, Ukraine English practice sessions for Ukrainians through a program called Engine.
Mm.
Basically, link native English speakers with Ukrainians learning English to practice.
I think I've heard of that program actually, or looked into it at one point. Kind of similar to what Balakun does.
Yeah, it's very similar. But all different levels, and you don't need to be a teacher. You don't need to be certified. You just need to have the time to sit there and meet with somebody. Um, if anybody that's tried to learn the language knows how hard it is to keep up and get the pronunciation right, and if you don't have somebody to talk to in that language, it's really hard to stay up with it. So I figured I could do some good, and if I can't donate, I can maybe help some people learn English better, get a better job, and they can make more money and they can donate to where it needs.
Yeah, absolutely. And actually, I don't talk about. Maybe I've talked about it on a stream. Well, first, let me back up. First, I want to say I'm really glad that I am really glad. I'm really glad that you did make that the plans for that trip to go to Ukraine before everything started, and that that really just and it can be like that for a lot of different topics. But I'm glad that having a connection to Ukraine was something that gave you that motivation, when you were in that dark mental space. I think many of us have been there. I've been in mental spaces like that in the past, you know. So first, I want to say that because I'm really glad that you're here. I know all of us are. Second, as far as when it comes to not, when it comes to funds or money or wishing that a person could give more for the war effort, I completely understand you on that. I know a lot of us do, but me personally, a lot. I don't know if I've mentioned it on stream, but part of the reason I started Tridents Against Tyrants is because when the war first started, I was making pretty good money. And I was actually contributing pretty regularly to a couple of different channels, to Rick's, to I think the Shills, uh, yeah, to several different pro Ukraine channels back in 2022, and doing it pretty regularly in decent amounts. Um, but then, finances change, and I wasn't in that position anymore. And I'm actually only just now getting to where I'm in a good financial position again. But part of the reason I started Tridents, and especially for the last 6 months now, I just haven't had money to donate. but I still wanted to find a way to help, And whether it's teaching English or making a cultural connection, like we've seen Lila, Roman's brother, Roman
Yep.
Trochemitz, um, with Spanish and with music, um, or it's fundraising. There's something we can all do with or without being a millionaire.
Well, you talk to anybody that helps run a charity organization, and they'll tell you that getting donations is the easy part. Getting people to volunteer their time is really hard. So time's the most valuable thing. If you can, like, I've been going for almost a year and a half now. No, more than that. Oh wow, I have to look that up. But I'm probably pushing 32, 33 months that I've been doing at least 1 hour session a week, just practicing English with people. And well, you sit there and figure that out. 1 hour a week over a year and a half.
Yeah, it all adds up. And it does all add up. I mean, it's funny. 1 hour a week, talking with someone in English. For me, uh, well, there's also video creation, but I'm needing to get caught up on the videos and the shorts here on the channel. But aside from that, the streams for Tridents are usually about an hour and a half long, sometimes up to two, and that adds up over time, even if it's just one, consistently one stream a week. This week there's going to be three, this one, and then the Saturday one, and then there's going to be another guest, I believe, on Sunday. But yeah, no, I mean, it all adds up with what time we're able to put in. Everybody can do their part. I definitely believe that in one way or another.
Well,
Um, mhm.
the way I see it is okay. If I didn't do the volunteer time, um, they'd have to hire somebody in to do that. How much would it cost to hire a teacher in to have practice sessions with these people? And it's not cheap. So instead, that's my me volunteering my time saves money for them to do other projects and help out in other areas.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it
Oh,
it, it has a bang on effect that people don't realize.
yeah. All right. So I will say now, let's go ahead and transition over to talking a little bit about the news. And yeah, we can kind of just, just a regular conversation or any analytical thoughts or opinions we might have on a particular topic. We can bounce them back and forth from one another, uh, or see what the audience, the chat has to say. First, let me see. Do we have any questions yet? We do not. As a reminder, everybody, the Q&A box is open. So if anyone has a question for Canti, feel free to put it in there and we'll take a look at it. There's also the question channel on the Discord server. So we'll be looking at both of those if there are any questions. All right. So first topic I've got is, let's see. And I don't have this. Yeah, I don't have this to where we're going to be pulling the article up on the screen. But uh, yeah, this announcement about the 10-year bilateral security agreement between the U.S. and Ukraine. So I know we were both kind of looking into it a little bit. I don't have the actual document, the legalese of the exact writing of the security pact, although it has been signed. So, but what I do have here is that per the agreement, the U.S. and Ukraine will spend the next 10 years building and maintaining Ukraine's credible defense and deterrence capability, strengthening Ukraine's capacity to sustain its fight over the long term, accelerating Ukraine's Euro-Atlantic integration, and consulting in the event of a future Russian armed attack against Ukraine. Um, and President Biden is quoted as saying that the agreement lays out the two countries' shared vision for achieving a just peace. So, what do you think of this thought? Of this defense pact? I know a few others have been signed between Ukraine and a few other European countries here recently. I don't know if they were 10 years long, respectively, with other nations, but I mean, I would see this as a pretty good indicator of the U.S. signaling long-term support for Ukraine that's going to go well into even if Russia is crazy enough to try to drag this war out for a decade. Um, what do you think the significance of this treaty is, or do you feel like the U.S. is going to make good on the promises in this defense pact?
I I hate to say this, but I think I'm gonna have to remain skeptical because there really isn't any details released out to the public yet. Um, so it's hard to form an opinion when you don't know what they're actually promising and what they're saying. Um,
Yeah, no, I hear you. That's fair.
and
Uh, mhm.
well, I'm also a little skeptical about the U.S. keeping its promises anymore because back well, we were supposed to be giving Ukraine military aid for since like 2010 to help them modernize and become a modern military. And like Trump withheld that aid in 2016 and 2017 because Zelensky wouldn't share, or I don't know if it was Zelensky at the time. I'm not sure who the president of Ukraine was at the time. Again,
Oh,
I
what?
know more
Oh,
about the ancient history than modern, but
right, right. Well, I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Zelensky, fairly certain Zelensky was still president, uh, I believe, when Crimea happened. Actually, you know what? Now I need to double check
yeah,
my
I
knowledge.
think it was, but I'm not sure. But anyways, for 2 years, Trump withheld the aid that we were supposed to be giving Ukraine from them because Ukraine wasn't giving Trump dirt on Hunter Biden. So, we broke our promise in the past. I don't know if our government will keep their promises in the future. I'd
Mm,
like to think so. You know, we used to be a country that, our word was our bond, but I'm skeptical now.
right. No, I hear you. Well, and yes, no, that's right. That's right. It was not 24 because back then it was Poroshenko,
Yeah.
if I'm not mistaken. So yeah, Poroshenko, and it wasn't until uh yeah, 2019 that Zelensky was campaigning for the presidency and when he was inaugurated. But still, no, precisely. I hear what you're saying, and there's a reason to be skeptical because we have seen a little bit of mixed messaging, more than a little in the past, specifically from the U.S. on the topic of Ukraine. Um, I'm cautiously optimistic, and honestly, I'd say that's mostly because I think the US government recognizes that it can, both financially and probably, mm, I think the current administration realizes that if they approach it correctly, both definitely financially and probably politically, they can afford to assist Ukraine in the long term through another 4-year presidency if Biden wins. And I do strongly believe that, but personally, that Biden will win in November in the U.S. elections. But I think that they want to send a message to Russia that if you want to bleed yourselves dry, if you want to try to create this, multipolar world order that you're looking for, and cause so much trouble for your neighbors and wreck your economy and act like it's the 19th century, an age of conquest, uh, old conquest. I'm not talking about, you know. what a lot of countries do, including Russia, which is try to install governments that lean more toward your own country's alignments. I mean, like actually invade and annex and kill and take land and resources from your neighbors. Um, I think the gamble is that Russia, at some point in the next 10 years, won't continue to uh, I don't know, won't continue to be able to sustain that and its own internal stability at the same time, what it's currently
Well,
trying to do.
pre-invasion, their demographics were to the point that Russia wouldn't have been a superpower in 70 years.
Yeah.
Um, the the war has definitely decreased that time frame, but how much is anybody's guess? Because Russia in numbers, they they're never right.
Yeah.
So it's like might as well just roll a couple d20s and they're gonna last that long.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess the other thing is that if we're looking at the whole framework of this entire situation, it's not just this war. Um, 10 years from now, even if this conflict is over, there could be a kind of lingering Cold War situation of will there or won't there be a second war involving Russia and Ukraine? Or it could be, more hybrid warfare, U.S. and other allies willing to support Ukraine, but, you know, strong or attempted strong infiltration by Russia into Ukrainian politics, like other Western European nations, or some would say even the U.S. itself. Um, so yeah, there's a lot of factors and variables to take a look at, but I personally think that I think I will say it's definitely a good sign. Um, Moving on from the topic of the 10-year defense pact, I've also got here some information on two things that go together pretty closely. So, first, as we've all kind of noticed in the news the last couple of weeks or last month or so, the talk about the peace summit for Ukraine and the fact that Russia is not invited and will not be taking part. Um, and then the recent announcement, and I believe I could be mistaken, but I know that there's been similar statements from different officials in the Kremlin, but I don't know if Putin himself has done this until now. Putin uh, publicly announcing an offer for a truce or ceasefire if Ukraine were to withdraw troops from Russian claimed areas, the occupied territories that Russia is illegally trying to steal, and drop its bid to join NATO, which of course Ukraine is rejecting. So, what I find interesting is the fact that the peace summit is opening up this weekend. Russia knows it won't take part, so Ukraine knows that realistically, without the other side there, you can't have a peace negotiation. You can only lay out a framework that you would then present to the other side later and say, from a position of strength, these are our terms. And then from Russia's side, because they weren't invited, I see this as them basically trying to get the spotlight on themselves because they aren't able to try to razzle dazzle people. They aren't able to try to make themselves the center of attention at a peace summit in Switzerland. And so, again, using fear tactics, saying, well, maybe not fear tactics, but basically laying out their demands independently as a response to the peace summit. So what's your thought on this? Do you think that it's just a symbolic statement? Do you think that Putin is just trying to save face, I guess, domestically or internationally with a statement like that, since it's obvious Ukraine's not going to not going to take a deal like that?
Well, I think Putin's hoping the West is going to do what it did in World War II with Hitler. Um, oh, just give me part of Poland and I'll stop. Oh, no, just give me part of Czechoslovakia and I'll stop. Just give me part of this country and I'll stop. Oh, well, now I want part of this country and I'll stop.
Yeah. Or even, no, I agree with you there. I completely agree with you there. I know a lot of people have been saying that for a while. But beyond even World War II, I would say, shoot, as recent as what year was it? After World War II, Soviet invasions of Hungary and Czechoslovakia,
Yeah.
in the 50s and 60s. Back then, was there a direct military intervention from the US? No. The Warsaw Pact was around and they were basically trying to flex muscles and say, hey, you've got your NATO thing, we've got our Warsaw Pact thing. We're going to do what we want to do. And we're going to prevent the spread of capitalism and your ideology. Obviously, the motivations are different now, but my point being that uh, they're banking on the same kind of response that they saw in Hungary, that they saw in Czechoslovakia in 1968, that they saw in Georgia, Republic of Georgia, as recent as 2008. That there will just be either a lack of care in the West, or even if there is care, um, and it's visibly evident from words or even a bit from actions, an inability to do something. With Ukraine, there's an absolute ability without destabilizing Western economies and politics to help Ukraine win this war. It's very and come out of this strong and pretty well prepared to integrate and be part of NATO and the EU and Western economic and defense alliances. Um, an example of a country that is not in as fortunate a position that I think even many Western nations would have to concede, especially because of the southern part of Ukraine still being occupied. And that would be the only realistic place to launch military operations to help would be Republic of Georgia. Because an invasion there, if you look at just a map, you realize, wow, there are no available allies touching that country who could help if they were invaded. A lot of different factors. But my point is that I agree. I agree with you. It's a trend. The Russians like to basically keep things uh, traditional in a lot of different things, and I say that with a lot of sarcasm because it's like a one-trick pony show. And the sad part is, uh, whether it's invading and hoping no one will care or do anything about it, or it's their horrible habit of infiltrating and installing puppet regimes all around whatever
Yeah,
the borders are. It's
it's
yeah,
putting lipstick on the same old pig.
yeah. The West keeps falling for it. Anyway, I was going on for a bit, so uh, what are your thoughts on this then? Do you think that do you think this is a trend we're going to keep seeing? Like I've been saying for a long time, after Ukraine, I can think of several countries where Russia would try to do the exact same formula. Uh,
Uh,
yeah,
well, Russia has to. Um, since the time of the Golden Horde, Russia's been invaded many times, and they're very fearful of being invaded because once the invaders have gotten into Central Plains, they have not been able to eject the invaders. It's the weather that's done the job for them. So the only way Russia can feel secure is to push towards natural boundaries and natural obstacles and seal the gaps in between them. They just don't have the population. You're looking at like 3 times the borders that the U.S. has, with a third to half the population the U.S. has. There's no way they can defend their borders without pushing out to the Carpathians, to the Baltic, and Russia can't see themselves as a peaceful country for some reason. They always have to be afraid of who's going to invade us next.
yeah. Actually, and that's something that's been mentioned in a lot of conversations on different channels, different streams. But what one aspect of that I don't think has been explored as much that you just made me think about. Um, when regardless of whether it was the Tsar, the Russian Empire, or the Soviet Union, or the modern, I call it the fake Federation, but the Russian Federation of today, whatever iteration of the government, far left, far right, imperial, whatever. Um, the one thing that seems to be clear is there is an in, a deep fear, and that's it, like an internal fear, and therefore, in order to maintain a sense of control in Russian society, Russian government, Russian military, even I'd say, like you said, their borders are too big to be able to easily defend or control pretty much in any situation. So the only deterrence really is to make everyone else so afraid that you're so crazy, you will do anything to defend those borders.
Mhm.
Um, and yeah, so I feel like for many, many centuries, and it still lingers to this day, this idea of really committing to or being part of any kind of defensive alliance or, you know, quote, friendly cooperation of countries, there's just no trust. I feel like there's this idea that Russians can only trust Russians, only trust themselves. And that's why even when they had the alternative, the realistic alternative back in the day to NATO of the Warsaw Pact countries, and today they've got their little uh, remnant, their vestigial um, CSTO defense alliance that isn't really worth the paper it's written on. Um, even when they form a defensive alliance, it's not really a defensive alliance. It's more Moscow giving orders to aligned puppet governments.
Well,
And yeah,
well, there's more to it than that. Are you familiar with like the term Russia and Rusiana?
I'm familiar with the Ruski Mir concept that
Okay,
Muscovites have.
in Russia, there's two ways to describe they use to describe Russians. Russia, which is ethnic Russians, and then there's Rusiana, which are Russian citizens but not ethnic Russians,
Ah, gotcha.
and they don't even trust each other. Um, you reading some of the stories I have from the captured prisoners and stuff like this, and even like in the training camps, it's the Russians versus this tribe versus this other ethnic group for and they're all out to get each other. And there's one story of one of the ethnic groups stabbing a guy to death because they were afraid that they were coming to hurt them. So
Right.
I mean, it's they don't even trust each other. So that I mean, it's a society built on not trusting anyone.
Precisely. And that lack of trust, even internal with other Russian citizens, if they're not the same kind, quote unquote, the same kind of Russian as you ethnically, it manifests itself with foreign policy strongly because, that attitude of, well, if we have a defensive alliance, eventually something will happen and no one will actually come to our aid. We'll have to do it by ourselves. We'll be abandoned. The only way to be safe is for us to dominate and be the one running the show for everything. um yeah, like terrorizing other countries and basically saying if you do anything, and it's even in their propaganda arguments, because when you hear people fall for Russian propaganda and they say things like, oh well, the US or NATO or the West or insert entity here made Russia invade Ukraine. When you hear that propaganda point, it's based off of this paranoid idea perpetuated in Russia, which is that if anything happens, if you see any kind of shift in alignment, any shift in alliance, then one of two things are happening. And from their perspective, I think they're equally bad. Either you're seeing the preparations for a full-scale military invasion, and you have to strike first, or you're seeing a shift using soft power, cultural power, economic power, where you'll be, quote unquote, from the Russians' perspective, invaded without a single bullet fired, and your society radically, changed and transformed. And so I really think, maybe not, maybe it's an exaggeration to say they're exactly equal, but very close. There's a deadly fear of both of those things within the most conservative realms of Russian society.
Uh, I agree
And
100%.
well, uh,
But
and,
there's a,
and, and just to clarify, I'm of course not justifying any of that shit. I'm just saying I think that that's the way that they think. You know.
it really is. A thought popped in my head when you're sitting there talking about it. It's like there was a song a couple of years back that was really popular called "Wasn't Me."
Oh
Um,
yeah, I remember that.
that song describes Russia to a T. Doesn't matter if you're caught doing it red-handed. Wasn't me. Wasn't me. So
Yeah, the gaslighting at its most insane, literally being caught in the act and
wasn't me.
just,
We didn't do
yeah,
it.
no, you didn't see that. That's not what happened. Man. Oh, we have a question. One question that's come in from James at Why Ukraine the Last Alliance. He asks, did you ever hang out with Crimson Company? And he said he'll take a listen later because he's got to get to bed. But yeah, did you ever have a chance to hang out with Crimson Company when you were in Ukraine?
Um, I don't know the companies that I've met in person. I met a couple of guys from Third Assault, um, but beyond that, I really couldn't name the individual companies they were from. Um, I think one of the other guys I met was from 95th. Um, yeah, I tried to stay off the topic of war because I don't promote myself as a reporter. Never claimed to be that side of it. I went to Ukraine to meet people I've met, talk to the families I've talked to the people I've helped to learn English. Um, I wasn't going over there to break a news story or anything like that. So that I didn't really focus on. Oh, you're this unit. You're fighting here. Da da da. No, it was. Oh, thank you for your service. Um, I, just normal conversation from there.
Yeah, no, I hear you because th- I mean, the war is still going on, so of course people are
Yeah.
going to be talking about and doing everything they can to plan how to fight against the enemy, all of that. Say thank you to and learn as much as I can about individual companies that isn't threatening operational security. Um, but yeah, and this has been mentioned, I think, a few times when I've been on streams with Starsky. It's not always, even when you're talking to a soldier, it's not always about the war. Sometimes, there's a lot of stuff going on. Ukrainians are people, and sometimes, not thinking about the war, talking about something else, anything else, can be a nice. It can be very nice, I imagine.
And that was part of the reason I didn't talk about it. Mostly because, well, I don't know Russian. I maybe know 4 or 5 words in Russian, and a lot of people there still speak Russian. Um, in Kiev, this majority is Ukrainian, but now it's funny. Like probably at least half the people I met and talked Ukrainian with um, told me that my Ukrainian accent's better than theirs.
Oh yeah.
And that's how I found out that they're originally Russian speakers that are learning Ukrainian now.
Yeah, yeah. Well,
So,
and I feel like not just in Ukraine, in a lot of countries, people don't realize, and this is something that is kind of a security concern for a lot of these countries because we've seen what's happened with Ukraine and Georgia and threats of things happening to Moldova. Um, you know, Russia has a tendency of, like you were saying, the concept of ethnic Russian citizens and then Russian citizens who are not ethnically Russian. There's also the concept just outside of the Federation of Ruski Mir. And part of that idea is that anyone who has either cultural, genetic, blood roots, or linguistic heritage stemming from Russia, from what is today known as the Russian language or culture or ethnic group. Uh, so ethnic Russians who speak Russian outside of Russia, citizens of other countries, like there's this obligation of their government to come in and quote defend those people. And that's why there's so much concern in places now like Republic of Georgia, like Moldova, even in NATO countries like Latvia, which has many Russian speakers. Because you can have people from who are citizens of those countries who speak Russian who are opposed to Putin, but you're also going to have people who buy into the Russian propaganda because the Russians push a lot to get people to believe their propaganda, especially if they're Russians outside of the borders of the Federation. And even if, let's say, hypothetically, you had a country where a bunch of the Russian speaking people there didn't like Putin, or they were neutral, or they were against the Russian government altogether, the Russian government doesn't care. It's just it gives them a propaganda point to feed to their own war machine, their own domestic population about why, quote, why we have to invade X country.
well, if I sat there and told you the sky is pink and the grass is blue, and I told you that every day for 10 years, you're going to eventually start saying the sky is pink and the grass is blue.
Oh, no, the craziest thing is you're right. Even if it's absolutely obviously false and the sky is blue and the grass is green, you would probably have someone from a propaganda angle in Russia saying, "Oh, but at just the right angle in the twilight in the setting sun, you can technically have a pink sky and blue grass." And it's the cognitive dissonance, the amount of roundabout logic. It's like, no, but that's not the actual color of that particular I mean, I guess the sky technically changes color, but grass is typically green. Everyone knows that, you know.
Well,
Um, so in any case, let's see. Let me see if there's any questions. Oh, Salt of the Red Earth is here, saying hi to both of us. Welcome. Always happy to see you. Lauren says, if the sky is green. Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It sounds ridiculous, but that's just it. A propagandist will find a way to, and I think this is the biggest difference. Someone who's just gaslighting without an understanding of human psychology will just keep reiterating the same falsehood again and again until eventually someone accepts the falsehood as true. And sadly, that can absolutely work if you just batter, if you just beat that same lie in again and again enough times, that can actually work. People will just give up and say, fine, whatever. But also, propagandists will actually try to find a way to use logic or emotion in order to sway your thoughts to, oh, maybe they're right, even though they're not presenting all of the facts.
yeah. And in today's society is kind of so interneted that we don't look for all the facts. We just look for whatever pops up in the top three spots on Google.
Right.
And you can manipulate that so easy.
Yeah. No, it's true. No, information warfare and propaganda, going around the world, it gets complex. It really does become a complex and fascinating topic. It's actually uh, it's a science, I would say, because that's how a lot of governments treat it. Um, but yeah, with regards to this current conflict, uh, I would say it's a situation where we can go back and forth on all of the motivations and the reasoning behind why Russia does what it does all day long. But at the end of the day, the real question is, okay, but now what are we going to do about it? And how are we going, once we have a better understanding, how do we, how do we
I'm
mass
sorry, I'm
advert?
laughing at chat here because they're sitting there having an argument about some grass is actually blue.
This is the highlight of the conversation. There is bluegrass. I heard that music before. There's a lake in Australia that is actually naturally pink in color. So you know what? The world's a
Uh,
crazy place.
they have one in Ukraine too.
Oh wait, that's pink?
Yeah, it's right
Oh,
on the border between Crimea and Kherson Oblast.
oh wow, that's really cool. Huh? Is that caused by bioluminescent microorganisms? I'm guessing, or
Um,
salt, some kind
no,
of
it used to
deposit.
be a salt marsh,
Uh-huh.
and depending on the time of year and the salt content, it changes color. You can actually look on Google Maps and see it.
Oh, that's fascinating. I wasn't aware of that. That's really cool. Um, okay, well, so we're almost an hour into the stream. I can keep going for a little bit. I don't know what your time looks like. I can probably go for a few more minutes if you'd like to.
You're the streamer on this one. I'm just the guest.
All right. Yeah, let's go for a little bit longer. Well, hmm. Oh, you know what? Let's going away from away from news articles at least. Um, I guess are there any particular channels or any particular projects that you've been following recently regarding support for Ukraine? Any particular fundraisers you can think of that are really important you want to bring to people's attention um,
Um,
as a
the
shout out?
one that was really important was um, Greg's, Greg Terry's with the armored personnel transports. Um,
Yes.
but that's already done. So, the only thing I can say is keep giving what you can. Um, you know, don't give more than you can because that doesn't help anybody. Making you broke and not able to give ever again. So, if you can afford $10, give $10. If you can afford five, give five because it all adds up.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. Um, shoot. And I wish I had a link. Well, hold on, but you said Greg's is done, but this new one is another one that he's also advertising on his channel, right?
Um, I haven't been able to catch most of the streams, unfortunately.
No, I hear you.
Um, I
There's so
got
much.
well, I got thrown into a bad space when I was in Ukraine
Uh-huh.
because everybody was streaming to catch the American audience, which means it was 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning that they were streaming for me.
Ah,
So I had to find other sources of news to to get my news about what's actually going on in Ukraine while I was there.
right.
And so now that I have those sources, I read about the news that's happening, and then the streams like 8, 10 hours later are the news I already know about. So it's like,
Right. No, that makes sense. Yeah. Um, well, for now then, what I'll do is I'm just gonna put a link to the general donation um page on Greg's website, Greg Terry's website. So that's in chat now, everybody. If you'd like to contribute, please go take a look, because I'm 100% certain if there's anyone who constantly has large, very effective fundraisers going on for Ukraine, it is Greg Terry. And there are quite a few people with a lot of rotating fundraisers for soldiers and civilians.
And
Mhm.
there's always going to be a need.
Yeah.
You know, do what touches your heart. I'm not going to say donate to Rick only, or donate to Greg only, or donate to so and so only.
Yeah, of course.
Follow your heart, because your heart doesn't lead you astray. It may lead you down a rocky road, but you always can walk it through it.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And what I always tell people, wait, do I have it in the description of this? I think I have it in the description of this video. I do not have it in the description of this video, which I almost always do. So what I always tell people is, I'm a guy on the internet. At the end of the day, some of us are smaller channels or groups, some of us are bigger. But we're all on here, building trust and building support for Ukraine. But if someone wants to give money and know that it's going directly to where it's needed the most, I always tell them to check out United 24 personally, since it's an official initiative of the presidency of Zelensky, for not just the armed forces, but multiple sectors of assisting Ukrainian society. So, yeah.
Well, and the celebrity backing that United 24 has brought so much attention to them.
Yeah.
Especially with like Mark Hamill doing the drone army. And
yes, yeah. And not just Mark Hamill, but several other high profile, like whether it be celebrities or scientists, academics. They've got a lot of, basically, for anyone unfamiliar, United 24 has an ambassador program. Mark Hamill's a member of it. And just people who kind of have for one reason or another, a weight, or they're recognized as reputable within their respective societies, for some major scientific, artistic, military accomplishment, whatever the case might be. Sometimes people get an invitation, and I think, can't remember who, but I know a few more people had joined that recently to start fundraising for Ukraine again, another round. But anyway, go check out United 24. If nothing else, go check them out, because they are 100% official. All right. So, new topic. Let me take a look real fast. Oh, we've got some more questions. Oh, we've got Mr. Squiggle asking for an update on Ukraine daily costs. And we have an Kai Rollwagen hat 3 coffees gekauft for the next drones. Best of luck to all the brave Ukrainians. Thank you very much. So that should be 3 coffees would be about 15 in US dollars. So I don't know. I'd have to convert that for euros. But in any case, thank you very much. And I'm assuming that based off of that being partially in German, coming from a German-speaking country, thank you very much. All right. So for the Ukraine daily costs, I mean, I wasn't going to pull that up just because we're going to do that again on Saturday. But yeah, we could do that real fast. Let me just, instead of a video, let me just pull up a graphic that I can put on the screen. Let's see. Best way to do that's gonna be with.
Okay, I went and looked up the ambassadors for United 24. There's a couple on here that I didn't know about until just now.
Oh yeah.
Like, I didn't know the band Imagine Dragons was a Ukrainian ambassador for United 24.
They are, yeah. That actually, I love them. I loved Imagine Dragons before, but I actually love them a lot more now because they are very pro-Ukraine. And they've. What's sad is, actually, you know what? I'm not going to name drop any other bands, but But there are some bands like Imagine Dragons who have really stepped up, and there are others who I expected to stand up for Ukraine who really have not. Um, so I've got a lot of respect for them. Yeah.
Well,
Uh,
I think it's important to note because a lot of people got this wrong, and so did the press. Yes, Pink Floyd supports Ukraine. Roger Waters was kicked out of Pink Floyd years ago and does not support Ukraine. Just
ah,
that's out there, and people can know because
absolutely.
Pink Floyd actually did a cover with the singer that did the uh, I can't say the name right now. First, it's the
You having trouble
oh
remembering
yeah,
the name?
uh, talking about the yellow flower of Ukraine, the yellow bush.
Yellow bush of Ukraine. I mean, I just know the sunflower, which would be a
No,
flower, not a bush.
talking about the
When
the
you say yellow rose, that makes me think of like Texas, which is about the size of Ukraine, but I think it's in the wrong
oh,
continent.
I feel bad because I can't. I have it like right in the front of my head, but I can't just spit it out. Yeah, the red verbena. Okay, thank you, KK.
Ah, thank you,
I,
thank you.
I had it in Ukrainian, but I was trying to translate it to English, and it just kind of just messed up.
Mm,
But they actually worked with him to do a song, and all the proceeds of that song on Spotify went to United 24.
mm.
So,
Oh, and I have an update here on what's gonna be the best way to do this? Let me do it using shoot. It's gonna be usually I would easily be able to do this because I would just turn off the owl, but now I've got everything shifted in a way. Let me move this window up and then share it. I'm gonna pull up the current losses of Russian personnel as of today.
oh, why don't I just say it? The song is called "Hey Hey Rise Up" by Pink Floyd. So if you guys want to search it, there you go.
All right, awesome.
I'm sitting there typing it in chat and like, why am I typing?
Here we go. There we go. Now I just have the one. Okay, so for anyone, I'm just gonna pop this up on the screen real fast. Oh, that is the exact wrong size. That is very much the wrong size. All right, we're not gonna make it perfect. We're just put it there. For anyone curious, that is the current estimate from minusrus.com. Approximate assessment of the armed forces of Ukraine as of June 14th, 2024. Now, I'm not certain if this is calculated correctly because this part, 524,060, that's pretty consistent with what we have been aware of. But I don't think that's just fatalities. I think that's casualties. So that would include both wounded and
No, if you look below,
KIA.
wounded is a different number.
Yeah, no, exactly. Just I see it different from website to website. Um, so I'm not 100% certain on that. But in any case, regardless, still, however you put it, either more than 500,000 Russians, Russian invaders are dead, and 1.5 million wounded, or over 500,000 have been taken out of the battle permanently, either either dead or maimed, to put it bluntly. So either way, it's still a staggering number.
Well, I was waiting to bring this up to the person I told this to, but like back when Russian casualties were only like just reached 100,000, someone saying like, "Oh, they're gonna want peace now," and I was like, Nah, Russia
Someone,
doesn't give up until they reach like 500,000 casualties or more. And it's just kind of
yeah,
funny that one of the things we're talking about is Putin asking for a ceasefire, well, giving terms for a ceasefire right after they hit 500,000.
right.
So it's
Yeah,
like,
exactly. The timing is pretty interesting with the peace summit, with his, proposal for a truce, with the number of losses. Yeah, this war has just in general, like most wars, been pretty bad. But Russia, when they went into this at first, was hoping it would be a lot less bad for them.
yeah,
Um, and I think that's partially because of naive or inept parts of the Russian armed forces actually overestimating their military capabilities. And I think that's partially because of the other half that isn't naive, that did realize, yeah, this is going to suck for us. This is, yeah, in terms of losses, in terms of operational capacity. But you know, that's just the way that we do things. Look at World War II. Look at how many losses there are every time Russia's in any kind of war, defensive or offensive. I mean, honestly, to be completely honest, anyone who's studied history can tell you that the meat grinder tactic is another traditional classic of the Russian military, spanning back quite a while.
oh yeah, Napoleonic Wars. Um, but again, they got past the defenses and ran rampant through Russia until winter hit.
Yeah, yeah, precisely.
Well,
Um, oh shoot. Let me just check something real fast. Okay, we're good. Um, so that was one question. Let me go back to the other because I kind of got focused on that for a sec. Oh, we have a few more that have come in. How did Cant? Yeah, let me move on to the other questions before we run out of
okay.
time. How did Canty's final weight loss tally go? He looks slimmer. I wasn't keeping up with that. So yeah, what was your final tally if you announced a weight loss goal?
I'm sitting right now at about 79 pounds since I started pedaling on my elliptical under my desk. Um, you know, I got a ways to go still, but I'm getting there. You
All
know,
right.
I'm actually feeling good enough that I'm actually able to do yard work. Um, I carry a little stool around with me, so like mowing the lawn or doing something like that, and okay, need to rest, put the stool down, sit.
Mm,
So, but I could. I'm doing about 20, 30 minutes, and then I have to rest. Where like last year this time, I couldn't even make a sandwich without having to sit down. So,
oh, well, hey, that's progress. You know, so whatever the goal might be, getting to where it's best for your health, that's always something to celebrate. So,
so well, that's part of the reason why I say Ukraine has done more for me than I've done for it.
hmm, I gotcha. um both of those questions were from Mr. Squiggle. Thank you very much. Oh, really quickly before I go to the next question, Leathercat said Chevrona Kalina. And yes, or you lose it, Chervona Kalina. Chervona Kalina. Yep, that's the shrub.
Yeah,
Referenced like, over and over again in that song that I have mostly memorized that I should have recognized. It's just one of those things where I hear that song constantly in Ukrainian, but I don't think about the translation, and I'm not fluent in Ukrainian. So I forgot that it even mentions a shrub.
yeah. It's weird because it's like I have Ukrainian, Polish, German, and French and English all floating in my head. Oh yeah, and Spanish. So it mixes up sometimes, and I'm like, what language am I supposed to be speaking?
It's like the country of Malta, where if you've ever heard a person talk about the Maltese language, it's literally a mishmash, like a chopped mishmash of Arabic, English, French, Spanish, Portuguese, and I think some Italian.
Oh
And
wow.
so and so it's like you get bits and pieces of all those languages. So it it's like you just threw all of them in a blender because of all of the historic handoffs of and occupations of Malta. Uh, but
Yeah.
in any case,
Well, I'm not even going to try and count how many times I said "see" in Ukraine instead of "tak."
yeah, right. No, I speak a bit of Japanese, and sometimes when I speak with friends who speak Japanese, I'll find myself saying "si" or using another language out of the blue. I'm like, oh, wait, no, I got my wires crossed.
Yeah,
Um, so
I
let's see.
understand.
Next question from Mark Sangamon. Were there parts of Kiev you were told to avoid? And I'm guessing, well, this is a pretty general question. I'm guessing that obviously because of air raids, missile attacks, but also just in general, were there parts because of the war you were told to avoid, or parts because of crime you were told to avoid, or for any other reason?
um, there's one section on the left bank. I was told that I shouldn't be there after dark, and so I went there after dark, and it's not as bad as people think. Um, but you also have to remember my teenage years were spent on west side of Phoenix and Glendale, where I was the minority in my neighborhood.
Hmm.
Uh, so I got into a lot of fights, and well, I wouldn't say a lot of fights, but arguments. Uh, Picked on a lot. So if I can handle myself in basically the ghetto of Glendale, downtown Glendale, I can. That was no problem.
Gotcha.
But it also could be that I'm 6'3", a whole lot of pounds that I shouldn't be. Not many people are going to mess with you anyways.
Yeah. No, I'm also around. Well, I'm also around that height, so I hear what you're saying. A lot of people, just in general, kind of are wary when you're a certain size, even if they, I don't know, should or shouldn't be. And that's just
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, the Napoleon complex kicks in for a lot of people too. So
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I've had that happen too, which is very annoying when
yeah.
it does happen. Um, oh, here's a question. Last question I have so far from Salt of the Red Earth. Do the occupied territories use rubles currently? And if so, do you think that people there will change sides now because of the ruble's crash? Yeah, so I mean, the ruble has had its, you know, quote unquote crashes or its downs throughout this war, but there was a pretty major, I think one US dollar is worth a little more than 200 rubles now or something like that
Wow, that
after
bad.
this. Yeah, like apparently, supposedly it's gotten that bad. I don't know if, Rus the Russian Treasury, Department of Treasury, Ministry, I guess, of Treasury for them, or if they have any kind of economic plan whatsoever to hedge that. But let me double check. Russian.
89.59 rubles to a dollar.
Okay, they must have done something then to stabilize it, or maybe it was an exaggeration on the headlines, because uh,
The highest
let's,
I've seen it get is 100 rubles to the dollar. So
yeah,
because I remember joking about not making the U.S. not making pennies anymore and just importing the Russian rubles for pennies.
yeah,
So I
and
remember that part.
yeah, so there it is now. Sorry. That was an exaggerated headline for it being 200, and that was I won't say which channel. Someone might know which thumbnail that was sticking in my brain. But it's not that high. It's to about, like you were saying, 90 or so.
Yeah.
But still, yeah, people want. I think anyone who's familiar with how economic instability really can breed political stability. I think there are certain magic numbers, like when ruble is 1 to 1, $1 to 150 or 1 to 200. Like at that point, it would be so bad that we would be seeing some pretty obvious fraying at the political seams in Russia. But it hasn't gotten that bad yet. But to answer the question, if well, here's the thing. Um, Salt of the Red Earth. It's kind of to answer your question, it's not really a matter of do you think the people there will change sides because of the ruble's crash. I mean, the people in the occupied territories are just that. They're being occupied. It's like, it's like saying back in the day, well, you know what, I'm not going to go too specific into history for this analogy, but uh, let's just say that at the end of the day, there have been people who have, rebelled, who have protested, who have even managed to smuggle a few arms and fight beyond, hit and run sabotage tactics inside of the occupied territories. There's been partisan activity, and that still hasn't gone away. Uh, but the people as a whole kind of are um, basically unarmed and they can't do anything. They're being held hostage by orc soldiers, by Russian soldiers. So, I mean, maybe people will hear about that and it won't be good for their wallets inside the occupied territories. But it's not really a matter of changing sides because the only way to really get the quote unquote side to change is to liberate them.
Well, I know officially for the Russian occupiers, the currency is the ruble. Um, the hryvnia is not allowed to be accepted at stores or banks or anything like that.
Yeah.
But the U.S. dollar and the euro is alive and well there too.
Yeah. There's a black market for it, I'm sure, among Russian soldiers. I guess the real question here would be, would the soldiers in the occupied territories change sides? And I don't see that happening.
They get paid in script, basically.
Yeah.
They don't have anything to spend money on sitting at the front. So, and they're not like the U.S. Army where they have the PX or whatever just down the road from their base. So,
yeah. So, I mean, yeah, thanks for the question on that. And I guess that would be both of our opinions on the matter, Let's see. Is there anything else in live chat right now? We're caught up with questions. Possibly. Let me check real fast. I see conversations going on. What else? What else? Nope, I think we're good on questions. And we're almost at the hour-and-a-half mark, so I guess we can start wrapping up, finish up maybe within the next 5 or 6 minutes or so.
Okay.
So yeah, I really appreciate you coming onto the stream, man. And I guess before we wrap up, let me think. Okay, so right now, if I'm not mistaken, you can feel free to share exactly where if you like, but I won't pry. You're back stateside though, correct?
Yeah, I'm in South Dakota.
Okay, South Dakota. So, oh, very nice. I know a few other.
Oh no, very hot. we were at like 96 yesterday.
Yeah. Well, actually, I know of someone who is a strong supporter of Ukraine from South. I don't think they're in South Dakota now, but they're from South Dakota, so that's small world. Anyway, well, now that you're back stateside, do you have any plans for what you want to do moving forward in terms of, I mean, whether it's support for Ukraine or just kind of personal ventures? Got any
So
plans you want
I
to share?
have a list of chores that I need to get done before I can go back to Ukraine.
Ah,
So
okay.
I'm pushing my way through those chores.
Okay. Very good. Very good. Uh, Well, aside from going back to Ukraine, do you have any other stuff that you want to do in the future, just from home in the U.S. You know, as a support initiative or something like that?
Well, I started a small company, a nonprofit over in Ukraine.
Hmm.
Uh,
Do you mind if I ask ask the name of it?
it's Give Again Ukraine.
Give again, Ukraine.
Yeah. Um, it's not some. Like I said, I'm kind of a shy person, so I don't really like talking about myself. But
Right. I gotcha.
it was just it started out as something for me. I was looking for a house and found a cheap house that needed repairs, so bought it and had the construction guy fixing it up, and the construction guy's house got bombed, and he needed a place to stay and asked if he could stay there while he fixed it up, and I was like, sure. And it just snowballed from there.
Oh, wow. So is the nature of the nonprofit kind of a similar idea, like helping to build housing for, well, I mean, is it in general building housing for Ukrainians, or is it building it for people in certain industries who are displaced because of the war? Or, yeah, what's the
um
nature?
the, I'm gearing more towards like people that wouldn't be able to afford a house otherwise.
Okay.
um, there's a lot of single moms there that are on government assistance and would never be able to buy a house on their own because they get like, I think it's 9,800 hryvnia a month, and from that they have to pay rent, food, utilities, and like just the rent for my apartment in Kiev was $300 for the utilities,
Mm,
and you're talking barely 250 they're getting a month.
yeah. Well, and
So
that's in Kiev, and I don't know if you were in what kind of apartment you were in, but I imagine. Well, I imagine in rural areas it'd be more affordable, but also there's less defense from enemy aerial
well,
bombardment.
yeah, and I was in a much older area. um, you know you talk to like Johnny FD, and he paid like 140,000 for his apartment.
Hmm.
Apartments in the area I was staying in go from like 35 to 50,000 US.
35 to
So
50. Wait, I'm sorry. 35. Oh, you mean like purchasing the whole apartment
yeah,
building?
well, no,
Ah.
the just the apartment. You know, the apartments in Kiev are expensive.
Oh, wait.
Any big city, you're jumping up in price. But you go just outside the cities into the rural towns, and a
Huh?
lot of those are dying.
Oh,
You can
sorry.
get
I got confused because I thought you said 35 to 50,000. So I I assumed that was like, or did you mean 3,500?
um, the apartments in Kiev were 35,000 US dollars on the low end where I was staying, and those rents were like 250 plus like $50 for utilities.
Oh, okay.
So that's
Okay.
like the I'd say upper low end. Um, the building across from me was government housing,
Hmm.
so if you didn't have income and you were on government stipend, the building across from me is where you got government housing.
Okay. Okay. I got you now. Well,
And
mhm.
that those entire apartments were about as big as my room.
Ah, okay. I see. I see.
So
those were the type of people I was looking to help out, and even coming up with, you know, $500 to buy a place in a rural area wouldn't do them any good because there's no jobs. The
Right.
schools are shutting down, so they don't have anywhere to send kids, and
Yeah.
so I'm trying to work out getting like close to bigger cities and finding the abandoned houses there, getting the families in there, and eventually getting them to own that property.
Mm. Okay. Gotcha. Okay. Well, do you have a website for your initiative, or is it
No,
still kind
it's
of?
in the works, but I got the domain registered and all that. So
Ah, well, if you want any help with that, I've got experience. I say this when I've been so busy, I still haven't made the Tridents Against Tyrants website, but I do have several other websites I've made for different
well,
initiatives recently.
I
So,
have somebody in Ukraine working on it for me because it's going to be a .ua website.
okay, perfect, perfect. Very good. Okay. Well then, oh, I guess we've got one last question that came in. Um, when is, uh, so you said you have got a to-do list before you can go back. When is, Leathercat asks, when is Canty planning to go back to Ukraine, and will it be another visit or to live there permanently?
Um, it, de- Part of that question depends on the other part. If I just go back to visit, I can go back probably October. Um, and that would be just renting another apartment and hanging out in Kiev and such and such. But if I push it back to spring, I'll be able to save up and buy a place for myself. Um, you get my visa taken care of because that requires a flight to DC to get my visa and the biometrics done. And so the expense of actually getting my residency card for Ukraine is a lot higher than it is just to go there.
Mm, okay.
Um, yeah, my flight to DC would cost me more than my flight to Poland.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Mm,
it's pretty weird when you can sit there and fly to Poland cheaper than you can fly from Sioux Falls to Washington.
yeah. Well, and it also would depend on what airlines. No, you're right. It is unfortunately like that, flying around in North America in general. Uh, I mean, there might be some airlines you could take that would be more affordable, but only if they even operate in your area, like Spirit. And Spirit sucks unless you know how unless you know how to play their little game, and you literally take nothing but whatever is inside your pockets. I would say probably no carry-on bag at all. You can't. It's not easy to save money flying in the U.S.
Well, I figured out a decent way to get the lowest price I possibly can on the flights.
Hmm.
Um, like my trip to Poland was
Vincent.
$535
Yeah.
round trip.
Yeah.
So normally that ticket sells for about 1,800. So
Hmm.
I know the tricks of getting a cheap rate, and yeah, like the cheapest rate I could find to get to Washington for a weekend was about 480
Mm, yeah. Round trip.
round trip. Yeah.
Yeah. No, that sounds about right. Yeah, because it usually, whether it's something like Southwest or Spirit, or just knowing the airline companies well enough to find really good deals a variety of ways, or using airline miles, points, whatever. It's really hard to get something under $200 one way, and when you put it together, you end up paying for for something at least, you know?
Well, it'd be easier if I lived in a bigger city or state. Because it doesn't matter where I go unless I'm going to Chicago or to Las Vegas. There's no direct flights anywhere.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, Dallas. I can go to Dallas direct.
Okay.
But other than that, I have to do layover here, layover there. So
Yeah. I got two things. One, in chat, Vincent Gregory is saying, was laughing when I said spirit, and he says, Spirit operates in the USVI. I use it a lot, unfortunately. So, no, yes, Vincent, I know your pain. It's not fun flying with Spirit. Quite literally, they will do everything they can to suck every penny out of you while pretending it's a cheap flight, and you have to literally know all the tricks to keep them at their word that it'll be a cheap flight. And then we have one last thing. Not a question, just Aussie T says, "Does Canty know how amazing he is? Thanks for being so inspiring."
see, I'm not amazing. I'm just a regular guy. I just made myself get over my embarrassment and put my face on YouTube.
See, he's even braver than me because I'm just a regular owl.
I've been trying to avoid getting you to say this, but I need you to say give a hoot, don't pollute.
Give a hoot, don't pollute. Oh, wait. Is that no? Which reference is that to?
Oh, let's see if I can find.
Because I want to say the two things that come into my mind. We're getting so off topic here at the end, but the two things that come to my mind are either Captain Planet or Woodsy the Owl. But Woodsy the Owl was
Woodsy the Owl.
South Park reference.
It was actually before South Park, but South Park kind of took it over.
Yeah, that's right. They referenced Woodsy, but Woodsy existed before. Yeah, that's right. That's right. In any case, all right. Woodsy Owl, yeah. All right. Well, this has been a really great conversation, man. And yeah, I hope to have you on the stream again. Now that I've got this set up, and I still have Restream as a backup, but I might try to do some group streams with multiple people, kind of like how Rick has done it in the past. Oh, yeah, Rick is here. Hey, good to see you, man. Canty, you're a regular, very kind and caring guy. That second part is very rare and makes you amazing. Ah, yeah, exactly. Thanks, Rick. Always good to see you, man.
Oh, Rick, don't forget to use your certificate. Not for you, for your wife.
All right. Be sure to use that certificate, Rick. All right. So, again, thanks for joining, man. And now that I got things set up, we might have a group panel with multiple people, one of these weekends. So, hope to see you on the channel again sometime in the future.
And I figured out I need a fidget spinner to do these interviews. That's you're playing with whatever I can on my desk, my phone, my calculator, lip balm.
for me, it's my foot. Half the time, I'm so busy doing stuff with my hands that if I have a moment, like I realize, oh shoot, I'm shaking the microphone with my foot. All right. Well, thanks for coming, everybody. Continue to stand with Ukraine. Please be sure to check out Canty's channel, because he does have a channel, and it's just under Canti Ludan, if I'm not mistaken. And in fact, that's probably something I should have put up at the very beginning of this stream, and I'm kicking myself for not doing it. So I'm going to put it in chat and the description right now. What's up?
You have me added in the title of the stream, so.
Oh, yes. Okay. I did that correctly. And so, yeah, right in the title, you should be able to click and you'll find Canty's channel. So go check out some of his content. Thanks for being here, Canty, and Slava Ukraini, everybody.
Your own Slava.